Good morning to everybody. My name is Lilia Pharazyn, and my first time visiting the Chavez Ravine Arboretum was with an arboriculture class several years ago. I was surprised to learn about the history, and I had no idea this resource was right here in the middle of LA. The history of the site is unknown to many, and I hope to share with you the beauty and potential of this place to finally grow into the landmark it was meant to be. The Chavez Ravine Aboretum is located within the 575-acre Elysian Park, the second largest park in the city, and is near downtown and the LA River. This land was home to the Tongva. In the mid-1800s, quarries were operated here, and it was known as Quarry Hill. In 1886, Elysian Park was founded, and several years later, a group of horticulturalists petitioned to start the Arboretum, and it was created in 1893 in a haphazard fashion. The Arboretum is located in Chavez Ravine, the little valley that was named for one of LA County's first supervisors, Julian Chavez. The name also belongs to the community that was located to the south of the Arboretum and was destroyed by the government's use of eminent domain to acquire land for Dodger Stadium. Today, if you go to the Arboretum, you have no clues that you are in Southern California's oldest botanic garden. There are several reasons this site is worthy of a capstone project. It is a historic site, 127 years old, and in 1967 was designated a city landmark. There was also a master plan for Elysian Park that was completed in 2006 that specified the need for a retrofitted master plan. And when you look at a lot of the other botanical gardens in the Los Angeles area, they are not in the urban core and cost money to enter. There is an unpretentiousness and openness about the Arboretum that makes it unique within the landscape of botanic gardens. This project will develop a landscape master plan for the site. There's never been any formal planning of the Arboretum. The design will cover 14 acres and provide leisure and recreation opportunities for all users. The goals of the site are broken into 5 areas: identity, history, diversity, environment, user experience. As I go through the presentation, these icons will signal how the design is meeting these goals. The users of this site include many different people, from families to senior groups, youth groups, and landscape professionals. The park is surrounded by mostly residential, and there are multiple schools within a 1-mile radius of the site. The existing program in the park includes active and passive recreation, such as baseball diamonds and picnic areas. Other uses within the geography of the park, but not owned by Rec and Parks, includes the Police Academy, Barlow Respiratory Hospital, and Dodger Stadium, all of which draw users from throughout Southern California. I compiled a tree inventory for the site using a recently updated city dataset. There are 3 categories of trees designated by the city. I also met on site with individuals who have a wealth of experience with the site, and they provided insightful details. Thank you. In order to meet my goal of telling the history of the site, I kept all historic and heritage trees and almost all of the trees labeled no designation. Some examples of the historic trees are here. It's important to keep in mind what the surrounding area looked like when these were planted. Many of these are now relatively common, but in that time period, it was a novel horticultural exploration. In 1956, Theodore Payne wrote an article about the site saying, "It would be well worthwhile for any lover of plants to visit this site and see the interesting as well as botanically historical collection of fine specimen trees." 64 years later, this still remains true. Based on the research, I created 4 zones and 5 main program areas, which are those listed at left, plus the special specimen program, which includes those listed within each zone. The founding horticulturalists were not designing the space in any way, so there is limited organization of the trees. However, I was able to find some themes that tell a story. For example, the area called the California Experiment was based on the story that the founding members used seeds collected from their trips around the world to create this garden of experimentation to see what would grow and adapt to our Southern California climate. Many trees in our region come from these parent trees planted here. Another area that I'm calling the world of oaks was derived from the variety of East Coast oaks that were planted here, like the white oak and bur oak, and as the years passed, European and Californian varieties were also introduced. Creating this programming gives a narrative to the site and also helps guide locations for succession planting. There is one way into the Arboretum via Stadium Way. Most users arrive by car because there's no bus line that runs on Stadium Way. Within the site, there's a lack of formal walking paths or sidewalks, which means there is no guidance for visitors on where to go. There are several picnic areas and a playground structure. In the northern portion of the site is Palm Hill, an area that was planted with a variety of palm species in the 1970s, although there is no signage or indicators that this is the program of the area. Outside of the boundary is the Grace Simmons Lodge, a venue rented for events, and the natural park landscape that is a mix of chaparral and invasive species. The topography of the site includes some very steep inclines and a ravine that has a gentle slope down the center towards the southern part of the site. This swale line could be an opportunity to connect the site to the adjacent parkland along the southern edge. These sections through the site help me study the scale in relation to the slope and existing trees. This diagram shows different areas to take advantage of in my concept design, such as the great view to downtown LA from the top of Palm Hill, or the large sunny open area that has no existing trees and could be a good place to site a building, a plant nursery, or event lawn. Some of the challenges are creating accessible pathways on the steep terrain and Elysian Park Road that divides the site into two segments. Prior to delving into the concept design, I looked in depth at several sites: the LA Natural History Museum Garden, the McIntyre Botanical Garden, and the Learning Campus at the Chicago Botanic Gardens. I looked into each site's mission, programming, and key design features that tell the stories of the site. I also reviewed regional botanic gardens to look for successful program elements. The focus of my design research splits into three areas: creating places focused on nature and horticulture, health and well-being, and community-oriented places. I reference guidelines for botanical garden design, designing inclusive spaces, how to incorporate green infrastructure, and principles of site design. The program focuses on 4 areas. The principal one is the Living Museum, consisting of the tree exhibit areas. Education, leisure, and site amenities include elements such as a visitor center, plant nursery, outdoor classroom, nature play spaces, and a grand lawn. I've also included space for a small cafe since there is limited food amenities in the park. My design metaphor are lungs, the organ responsible for a process called respiration, where there is an exchange of gas that oxygenates our bloodstream. We have 2 lungs, the right and left, and there are 5 lobes. The site form is reminiscent of lungs, and we have 5 main tree programs that carry us through the site. Visitors that come to the Arboretum will exchange experiences and knowledge. Respiration comes from the Latin respirare, which means to take a breath, but also to enjoy a respite. I'll create spaces to enjoy a respite and take in a breath amongst these historic trees. So onto my site plan. Visitors enter the site and park at number 1. The parking lot has been reduced by half and the turnaround was removed. Based off the site analysis and the existing elements that cannot move, this was the most appropriate location for parking. However, given the availability of street parking and other potential locations for parking shown in number 12, reducing this lot that was dividing this part of the site was a way to unify it and also provided a location for the visitor center. Given the amount of trees and tree roots, I was looking to site the building where there would be minimal impact. This core of the site at 2 and 3 includes the visitor center with a cafe and an outdoor classroom. The visitor center will house information on the history of the site and educate the users on the history of Chavez Ravine. There are several picnic areas on the site denoted by 4s, and the grand lawn at 7 is a flexible space to catch some sun. At 6 is the plant nursery and a greenhouse. Visitors who come and just want to buy a few plants can park and get to the nursery along the secondary pathway. I will be going into further detail of the other site elements in the enlargements. This diagram gives us a clearer view of the circulation system and the road treatment for Elysian Park Drive. I have added a sidewalk along the streets, bulb outs at crossings, and speed mounds for safety. Different materials signal to users the different zones. The main walkway to the visitor center is a permeable paver, number 1, that then transitions to a warm tan concrete, number 2. Once visitors enter the California experiment at 3, there is a transition to a boardwalk path that will minimize impact to the tree roots. Palm Hill has decomposed granite pathways, which adds an informality, provides permeability, and helps with the heat on the south-facing slope. Here we can see how water flows on the site and how it can be kept on site through a system of water catchment in runnels covered with a metal grate or stones or wood like in the middle picture. The Grand Lawn makes for a perfect location to bury underground cisterns because there's no existing trees here. While the swale is a dry creek for most of its extent, at its widest area there's a small pond that will serve as an interactive play component and provides wildlife a water source. The dry creek is a swale feature for water absorption and also references the potential underground streams that run in this area. In addition to the tree program, there are 8 curated gardens that represent the Mediterranean planting zones. For example, at the base of Palm Hill, there is an aloe and protea garden. As we move up the hill and gain sun exposure, the gardens feature more dry-loving plants from Chile, Canary Islands, Mexico, and Central America. There are 6 crossings over the swale, providing opportunities for the visitors to see the dry creek from different angles. On Palm Hill, there are metal arches along the path that support vines and provide shade to those traversing up the hill. Being an arboretum, signage, both for identifying plants and for wayfinding, are an important part of the site. There are opportunities to engage multiple sensibilities through tactile signs, interactive displays, signage placed at multiple height levels and in multiple languages. Proposed signage for the entrance at Stadium Way and Elysian Park Drive uses a large boulder to reference the history of the park as a quarry. I'll now go over some site enlargements. Once you traverse up the path to the top of the hill, you're greeted with a nice breeze and a view of downtown LA. There are 2 terraces of grass. The upper terrace has shade sails. The wood deck built around the existing cluster of palm trees offers a place to take in the view or have a seat. You can also walk through the cactus garden before descending down the hill. Here we see how the terracing will work and how the cantilever deck will provide a different vantage point for visitors. I was inspired by late afternoon site visits where I saw people sitting with friends enjoying the view in the last few hours of light. This image shows the view towards downtown. It's the highest point in the Arboretum and is now a destination where anyone can come up and take a break. Next up is the Dry Creek play area. This area features new play spaces along the Dry Creek with nature play features. Kids can explore the swale while parents grab a seat on a shaded bench nearby. This part of the swale has a shallow pond feature where kids can poke around in the water and birds and insects can take a drink. At number 4 is the picnic grove with tables and shaded by some new Quercus cambii, Mexican red oaks. This section shows the gentle sloping of the swale, providing a calm place to explore. This is one of the programmed areas closest to Stadium Way, yet the existing trees and the slope up to the street protect it from the road. I studied putting a hedge or fence along this edge, but there is an element of safety that is lost when you close in the site. This palette gives you a feel of what the Dry Creek could look like. It doesn't have to be an arid rocky patch just because there isn't water flowing all year. There are higher and lower points of the swale, which influences the plant selection because not all plants that can tolerate wet soil can handle periods of inundation. This palette can work with the different sun conditions along the swale and provides interesting forms and colors to enhance the site asset. Up next, we have the outdoor classroom. The outdoor classroom is a space where the Arboretum can host lectures and small events. You can sit amongst the trees in the fresh air and learn about arboriculture, maybe a class on proper pruning or new pest management techniques. This section provides a sense of scale of the space. My objective was to create an outdoor learning venue that could accommodate 60 to 70 people. It's one of the quieter areas of the site, given that the road behind it is closed to through traffic. The proximity to visitors to the visitor center and parking lot make it accessible to visitors coming for just an event. The stage has a screening wall which provides the potential to show presentations or evening movies. This area boasts the majority of the oldest trees on site. The recommended pathway uses the example from Shangri-La Botanic Garden, where they built a wooden boardwalk pathway using helical piers and a modular structure to minimize impact to the existing tree roots. This space is dedicated to walking amongst the trees with some benches along the way to sit and take in the space. This section cuts through the California experiment in Palm Hill to give you a sense of the diverse existing species in the California experiment. We have an Aleppo pine from North Africa, southern Europe, a gorgeous California bay laurel, and a Cedrela tuna from Australia and Malaysia. Abaphia from Central Africa, Lebanese cedar, and banyan fig from India represent just this one section of the site. We'll end the presentation where we began, at the Visitor Center. As people enter the Arboretum, they can drop into the Visitor Center, the building on the left, and grab a brochure, view a display on the site's history, and learn about the different facets of Chavez Ravine. On the right is a cafe where you can pick up a drink or bite to eat and take it with you on your exploration of the site. Or maybe you just want to walk straight through and begin your journey through this historic site and learn about the trees amongst us. Thank you.